We have had our ups and downs trying to get this coordinated, but we are so excited to have Allen Speer, the CEO of Agape Flights, here to tell us about their mission and their work and just all the good that they're doing in the world. Actually, Allen's name came up a couple years ago in a foundation meeting. St. Armand's Key Lutheran Church Foundation provides grants to Agape Flights from time to time if they apply for them. And we thought, well, how cool would it be, to get the congregation to see not only, where this money is going, but hear about what they're doing with that project money too. So Allen has been CEO of Agape Flights for 13 years. Thank you. And their mission work takes them through the Caribbean, South America, Central America. They're literally flying in goods to help people in need. It's mission work 101, more or less, isn't it? And we're just so excited to have you here, Allen. So I'm not gonna chat long. I'm just gonna let you take the mic, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful Monday this is. I get to drive to such a beautiful place. But, Venice is a beautiful place too. But I told the staff this morning, I was meeting with the directors, I said, I get the privilege of going to St. Armand's Key and to St. Armand's Lutheran Church and being with people that I'm excited about meeting you and sharing with you the ministry that you have supported. And so just to give you a little background, so this question doesn't come up later, I am not a pilot. I did take my pilot training after coming to Agape Flights, but you don't want to fly with me. I was always told I can fly a single engine plane, but I'm not a good pilot. You have to stay in the cockpit. You have to be proficient. If your wife won't fly with you, you don't want to fly with that person. And my wife won't fly with me. I always fly with an instructor if I'm flying a single engine plane and I only have about 50, 60 hours. I wanted to understand, though, what it was that made the people that flew our supplies into missionaries, how they did it and all that. For many, many years of my life, I was a senior pastor. And so I became the CEO in 2000, I believe, 10, 11, right in that area, right after the earthquake hit Haiti. I asked the board of directors and the search team, why me? I'm a pastor. I'm a graduate of a theological institution. I'm not an aviator. I'm not a technician. And they said, we don't need any more aviators. We don't need any more technicians. We need a leader. We need someone that understands how to lead people, how to lead missionaries, and we really need someone who could pastor mission partners throughout the Caribbean. And that really interested me because for over 30 years of my life, I have established a ministry in Cuba called Cuba for the Cross. And in 1999, founded the National Evangelical Seminary along with 3 Cuban pastors there in Cuba. We have 7 locations throughout the island nation. In fact, my wife is there right now teaching in the seminary, and she'll be in Santa Clara, Villa Clara, Camagüey, all those places you know about, right? Everybody's looking at me like, oh, what's he talking about? Cuba is a wonderful place, and for a little while, Agape Flights was able to fly into Cuba legally with the U.S. permission and the Cuban permission. Unfortunately, during the previous administration, Mr. Trump pulled our exception and said no more mission flights into Cuba. Now, I'm not going to get political, so don't anybody get uneasy about what I'm going to say. But what I have a strong opinion that ministry flights need to be able to go where ministry flights need to be able to go. That's all I'll say about that. But we fly now into 5 locations into Haiti. We've been doing this for 43 years. 5 locations into Haiti, 2 locations into the Dominican Republic, and a few locations, but 1 primarily into the Bahamas. And that's what we call our scheduled arm of ministry. Every Tuesday and every Thursday, Friday, we are taking cargo that missionaries have either sent to us or their partners have sent to us, and it is going directly from our hands into the plane, from the plane into their hands. We have co-ops at every location, and those ministries, those ministry partners and mission partners are a part of that co-op. We service about 300 missionaries, and that number fluctuates from time to time. You're going to want to know about what's going on in Haiti, and so I want to give you all the updates that I can, but if at any time you got a question, just stop me. But we will close at the end, and I'll offer up an opportunity for you to ask me anything, well, almost anything, okay? I really enjoy, by the way, I just enjoy your pastor. I love to hear him speak. I said to him, my wife and I were supposed to have gone, yes. We were supposed to have gone to Scotland 2 years ago, and we all know the COVID outbreak and this, that, and the other. I was looking forward to playing Carnoustie and St. Andrews. And then he tells me he went to school in St. Andrews, and I'm very envious this morning. But I love to hear him speak, and I just have looked forward to this. As Brent said, there were so many obstacles that got in the way over the last year and a half. And I'm just excited to be here. All right. Agape Flights, established in 1980, actually, as a result of two retired Midwesterners who came to Bradenton, Florida, and decided that they would go on a missions trip with their church and their pastor to Haiti. They were retired farmers living on a fixed income. Had purchased a really nice house in Bradenton, but I had to learn when I moved here that there are a lot of those kind of people that either winter here or they retire here, and they really want the wonderful lifestyle and living that this area affords and brings. It was on that trip that Keith Starkey looked at his precious wife, Clara, who now they would have been in their late 60s. I remember when I used to say that, and it seemed old. Now that I'm in my mid-60s, I'm thinking they were young people, okay? Y'all laugh with me a little bit, okay? And he said, we're going to do something for those missionaries that we just helped. And she said, what are you talking about? She said, that's wonderful, sweetheart, but what are we going to do? She thought, and she told me this before her passing, she thought maybe they would purchase Bibles or they would do this. And he said, we're going to buy an airplane. And she said, with what? He said, I don't know, but they need to be able to get the necessary things. You see, they came to a mission group in Lakai that didn't have the necessities like barred soap bars, toilet paper. He said, we've got to do something about this. And so they mortgaged their home to the tune of $70,000 to purchase an aircraft that they couldn't fly or maintain. And God provided pilots and mechanics, and within 6 months that plane was paid off, and they were sorting items on their dining room table, servicing 22 missionaries. That was the birth of Agape Flights. Now, Keith and Clara have since, in the last few years, gone on to be with the Lord, but their vision and their dream has never ceased. In fact, they would be so pleased because today, after I leave you, I will be driving to Miami, where tomorrow I'll catch a flight into Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and I'll be meeting with over 500 mission partners there, their executive team and executive committee, where that we will probably, I would say by August, we will be doing a scheduled service on what I call the western route, and we'll continue going on the eastern route to Haiti, Dominican, and the Bahamas. But all over the place, and especially through the islands of the Caribbean, in Central America, in South America even, and in Belize and in Mexico, along the Yucatan Peninsula, there are mission partners who don't have accessibility to the normal things that you and I can go and purchase anywhere. They just don't have that. Now, the Dominican is changing in that when you're in the capital city, you can go to a Costco. You can go to a IKEA store. But in the outskirts of the Dominican, down in Santiago and in that area, they don't have that availability. in Haiti, there is nothing like that. And as you're going to see in just a moment, a year ago this week, in fact, a year ago today, I flew into Haiti with a team of 7. We were going there for the sole purpose of putting a roof on a church in a little place called Bedzimel, Haiti, and we were staying on the island of Agage, working with Bill and Janet Montgomery, mission partners there of Agape Flights. It's a beautiful, beautiful setting. The pictures are gorgeous. It is an island right off of Agage, Haiti. But there, as we went and we slept in hammocks, we're working on this church building on March the 29th last year. Our plane was abducted by protesters and rioters. You probably saw this on the news, saw it nationally on Fox News. And it was destroyed because they thought it was a politician's plane. And they abducted it and burned it to the ground. Now, the rest of the story I'll finish, but let's show that video if we can, Brent. And this will give you an idea of a little bit of the nature of what we deal with, but how volatile the situation is in Haiti.
Unimaginable sights. Protesters swarming a plane that carried a group from a Bay Area ministry. Agape Flights was on a missionary trip to Haiti when protesters swarmed the airport and destroyed their parked plane. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Wendy Ryan.
And good evening. I'm Jamison Euler. The team is safe tonight, but their plane was destroyed, and now Agape is trying to find a way to get them home. ABC Action News reporter Wendy Lane spoke with Agape Flights about what happened and how devastating this loss is for their flight-based ministry.
When you first see those images, you're instantly hurt and devastated.
Devastated to see these images, an Agape Flights aircraft under attack, being pushed down the runway in Agage, Haiti by a mob before it was set on fire and destroyed. Missionaries say rioters who were protesting against gang violence broke into the airport and attacked the parked plane, possibly confusing it for the plane of a politician.
When they see a private aircraft, they think that those are people profiting from their misfortune. And Agape's plane happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
A team from the Venice ministry was there on an earthquake relief mission. They were in a remote village helping to rebuild a church when the attack happened.
This is really heartbreaking and a big deal for Agape, but for all the missionaries.
Mark Stockland from Haiti Bible Mission says the loss of this plane hurts all the 300 missionaries who receive critical supplies from Agape.
Maybe it's food, baby necessities, medical supplies. All those things come on Agape Flights when you can't purchase those things in Haiti.
For more than 40 years, Agape Flights has been delivering supplies to missionaries across the Caribbean and responding to disaster relief. The plane is one of only 2 used by the ministry. Here's a side-by-side before and after picture of the same part of the aircraft to show the damage.
The aircraft is a tool. It's a very useful tool for us. It's our ministry. But it's just that, it's a tool. We're so thankful that our team is safe.
But after a miraculous donation by Faith Life Church for $1 million, and media coverage of the ministry looking for a new plane.
It's going to be used for your kingdom impact.
Their prayers have been answered.
That's a part of the miracle story, I think.
Agape Flights CEO Allen Speer says a couple read a news story about Agape Flights looking for a plane and reached out to the organization, selling them a plane much better than their old one and leaving enough money left over for pilot training and maintenance expenses.
Not only have we seen a miracle for the plane, but we've seen a miracle in Haiti through the Haitian government. AAN has now given us a 10-year exoneration from landing fees and airport fees.
Now, exactly 3 months after the devastating loss of the nonprofit's old plane, they have a better one that is completely paid for.
At least for us here, has been proven time after time after time that God is faithful.
That faith proving that what was meant for harm can be used for good.
Lord, every mission trip, every mission flight, every mission field, every need will be met, Lord. You promised to supply our need, Lord. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for the kind and generosity of these folk, God, who willingly give of their time and resources to do the work that you've commissioned us to do. Now, Lord, bless us, Lord, as we go forward. In Jesus' name.
Well, let's see, where is it? It should be right up in there. Let me just share with you, I don't see it there, but following the loss of that aircraft, you can understand and know how devastated we were. For those of us who were on the ground, it was shocking. And I knew that I had to get our team, at least I felt that way, that I needed to get our team into a safe location. We didn't know if protesters were going to take over the country. We just didn't understand and know. So immediately I moved our team with the help of Haitian police force there. They sent 13 SWAT members for 7 of us. You talk about a little bit of overkill, so to speak. By the way, did you notice in the video that they said they were protesting gang violence? What a way to protest gang violence. By destroying an aircraft that had carried those that had been hurt in the earthquake. That plane had taken those people from Lakai to Port-au-Prince to the hospital. So in part, you'll respect this, I think, and you'll understand that I wasn't born yesterday, and I'm thinking that those who initiated that attack really knew that was our aircraft. They were just trying to destroy something. Now, that sounds really harsh, I know, for a pastor. But what was meant for evil, God turned for good. Because the truth of the matter is, we needed a twin-engine turbine, not a twin-engine recip. And we had a $300,000 aircraft. We now have about $1.5 million aircraft in our backup aircraft. The folks that sold us that aircraft, I had looked at 2 in the UK. They both had high time on them. And just about the time I'm ready to fly over there, the gentleman calls me and says, both of these 406s have been sold. I'm so sorry. I had seen this 406 initially, and it had been sold at that point in time, about 18 months prior to me seeing it. My director of flight operations said, Alan, it's not available. And the gentleman that bought it in the Bahamas, true story, Sean Nash is his name, called our office and said, my wife saw the video and read an article, and I don't really need to be flying this aircraft. I fly 206s. I don't fly 406s. I don't fly twin-engine turbines very well. And he said, I really think you need this aircraft. And I said, oh, do we really? And so we brokered a deal together, and it was unbelievably beneficial for both of us. And they actually delivered the aircraft to our hangar in Venice, which is quite a blessing. So now we have our fleet consists of 2 aircraft, the Embraer 110 and the Cessna, or the Reims Cessna 406. It's a French United States kind of collaborative effort. The front end and the back end of the aircraft are French, and the middle is American. That's the best way this pastor knows how to tell you, because that's what my director of flight ops told me, okay? But I can tell you, it is a wonderful aircraft. It is air conditioned, which is wonderful. When you're on the ground in Haiti and it's 100 in the shade, it's wonderful to have that air conditioning. But it's been servicing, and now for about 9 months, doing a great job backing up our Embraer 110. Agape Flights is in the midst of expansion, as I've already told you about Honduras. By the way, one of the things that happened as a result of that aircraft too being abducted and burnt to the ground was the insurance paid off $300,000. We were very thankful that we had war hull liability, because if you have an act of violence like that, then it pays off. But what happened was those two engines, one of which was pretty much new, recip engines are somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000, and the props, there was only one blade that had a bullet hole in it. And there was some, by the way, there were 4 people that were killed in that riot, 4 Haitians. It's amazing all the ministry that has taken place since then and the open doors. But we were able to negotiate with the insurance company. They said, we don't want the engines. If you want to harvest the engines and the props, you can. Well, I said, we're going to go over there and get those engines off of those planes, because that's $100,000. And we want to be great stewards of the money and the resources. So no more than we've made our trip plans, and I got a call or got an email from a ministry down in Bolivia that heard we were going to have some Chieftain engines, some Lycoming engines available, and they wanted to be first in line to purchase them because they had a Chieftain down in Bolivia that one of the engines was timed out, and they needed another one. They just wanted to have the engines, and they said, listen, we sight unseen, we'll give you $100,000 for the props and the engines. And I said, I think I got a better deal for you. I said, well, what do you mean there? I said, what if we gave them to you? Because they're going to be used in ministry. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. God had provided so amazingly for us. We had one church that wrote 3 checks for $1 million. We had donors that had sent in money of $140,000 for the purchase of a new aircraft. We had $300,000 in our insurance for the Chieftain. And those engines, and that was the video I was going to show you, but those engines are now flying in Bolivia with International Tribal Ministries, and we are so thankful that we had the opportunity to invest back into them. God is so faithful and so good. So the ministry is expanding. I've already talked to you about Honduras. We are planning on, in the next 3 years, building a new hangar adjacent to our current hangar so that we can be prepared in 5 to 7 years. We are looking for a new main aircraft to replace the Embraer. I had to learn as a pastor that aircraft are not like cars. You don't say, what model is that? What year is that? The Embraer's a 1981. But I had to learn that it's all in the maintenance of engines. And by the way, you maintain engines. You don't fix them. If you wait to fix them, you can't pull up by a cloud and say, hey, we need an oil change here. Doesn't work that way. So you got to maintain them, and you have progressive maintenance. And it's the money in aircraft is in the engines and then in the avionics, and you're always upgrading and overhauling. We just went through another overhaul on the Embraer left side, $200,000 overhaul. I said to Greg one day, why don't we just buy a new engine? He said, well, boss, that's going to be about $500,000. Let's overhaul it. Let's take it back to new like that. But we believe that we're going to need to replace the Embraer There are only 17 of those now flying in the U.S. Parts are becoming very, very difficult to replace existing parts, and so we believe that we will have to replace that plane, and the plane that we want to replace that with is the new Cessna Sky Courier. FedEx just bought the first 50, and they have started receiving those planes. I met with FedEx about a month ago, and you probably know why I met with FedEx, because I wanted to know what they're going to do with those aircraft in 5 to 7 years. And they told me, we'll keep these in our fleet for 30 years. But we do have 3 prototypes if you might be interested in one of those. Absolutely, I'd be interested in one of those. And so I go to Wichita to meet with Cessna, who are FedEx and Cessna are partners. And I'm going to ask you to pray about that, because you know what I'm asking for. I'm asking for an $8 million aircraft. And that's not an easy ask, but I'll be honest with you. In the work and the ministry that we're doing, God has given me a spirit of boldness. You have to, because what we're doing and what our missionaries really need for us to do at times looks like impossible. But we know the Bible says with God all things are possible. Now, I've been rambling and talking for quite a while. Does everybody know where Agape Flights is? In Venice, right? Have any of you all ever been to our Pie in the Sky event? Oh, well, I need you there. Next March, the first Saturday in March, here's what I'll do. I'll buy lunch and dessert. All you got to do is come and enjoy. This year we had over 1,000 at our Pie in the Sky event. Many of those people had never, like you, had never been to Pie in the Sky. It's an annual event. Everybody in Venice knows about it. You'll watch it on the TV. The stations come. It's a lot of fun. You can fly the simulator. You may even win a ride up in the F-406, or get a ride in a helicopter, or enjoy the fun zone. There's so much to do that day, and the pizza is outstanding, and the pies are to die for. Most of those pies come from Yoder's. Familiar with Yoder's? Oh man, the raspberry cream. I regress a little bit there, but coconut cream. I'm thinking about pies now. I'll be hungry. But it's a wonderful, wonderful event, and it's a community awareness event, even though we do auction off 12 pies that day. I think this year those pies auctioned for a total of about $75,000. Really good pies. Great pies. But with each one of those pies, there's also a fishing trip or a golfing outing, or but trust me when I say this, people are not buying the golfing outings or the fishing trips or the pies. They're supporting a ministry that they really, really appreciate and love. And we know that. We know our support in the Southwest Florida area, but all over the nation, is really, really because they love what we do. And as you think about your questions now, remember this: Agape Flights is about a lot of things, but the number one thing it's about is service. We serve missionaries. Well, we serve Christ by serving missionaries. That's probably the way it needs to be said. We listen, we respond, we deliver. Now, the last thing that I want to talk to you about is the outreach arm of disaster relief. I told you that I came in 2010, and it was right after that earthquake in Haiti in 2010, 7.0 magnitude earthquake that killed over 300,000 people in Haiti. 1 out of every 10 that survived the earthquake are amputees. 150,000 people are buried out by Titayen, Haiti, in a mass grave. When I even think about that, and I visited there, and I think that they just buried 150,000 people in an open hole out in a mountain, it brings me to tears. But 2 years ago, there was a 7.2 magnitude, did not kill nearly the 300,000, only about 8,000, but destroyed literally every structure within its path, and we were there. And that's the outreach arm, or the second arm, that I always tell people about. When disaster strikes in the Caribbean, hurricane, earthquake, geopolitical disaster, whatever it is, we try to be there, and we try to be ready to go pretty much on the same day that it strikes. So that's why we have 5 flights basically set up with tarps, water filtration equipment, generators, things that will be necessary, bandages, medical supplies, anything. And we have flown those kind of flights to Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, all throughout the Caribbean. When Hurricane Dorian hit the Bahamas, we were there. We flew 150 flights in the first 90 days after the 2010 earthquake. We have flown literally hundreds of tons of supplies, and we have leased and rented planes so that we could get it there quickly. Most of the time, what you can do within the first week by an aircraft is very, very important. If you can get it to them, and we are very, very selective about what we take. I'll never forget, a lady called me one time right after this last earthquake and said, I just had a garage sale at my house. Can I bring you my stuff, and will you put it on the plane? And I said, no, ma'am, I'm so sorry, but we won't. They don't need that right now. What they need are blankets. They need shelter, like a tent or a something that they can lean to and get in and stay sheltered from the elements. They need bandages. They need water filtration equipment, because people said, I bet you haul a lot of water. Do you realize water is very heavy? And then you're hauling in those bottles, which is also not real good for the environment. So we try to work with WaterStep or Water One or people like that will loan us or give us equipment so that we can take equipment in, give it to our missionaries, and they can take existing dirty water and clean it so that they have a supply and not just a quick fix. So I have spoken way past my limit, and I want to offer you all an opportunity to ask me any questions. And there are no questions off the table, so come on. And we've got to remember, as the pastor said, we've got to get that mic. Brent's going to get there. So that those, by the way, who are watching us, they can hear these. Yes, sir.
25 years ago, after many of these earthquakes, our hospital organized a team to go to Haiti. The American military were there. They prevented them to go on shore, so they wasted 2 weeks of their money and their presence and couldn't do anything. My question is, how do you get the intelligence from the countries that you fly in that it is safe or it becomes a suicidal mission? That's number one. Number two is, we were very disappointed that we were able to have volunteers and we supported them, but they couldn't really get to where, there was a church, there was an orphanage, there was everything. But they were not allowed by the authorities to get off the boat and go into the inside where they're really needed.
And that was in Haiti.
You said Djibouti, yes, it was Haiti. And that's the first question. Number two is the Middle America countries are turning more and more to communism, and you don't have to believe me, you just read the newspapers. Mr. Xi is there and spreads his wings. So how do you deal with the authorities that are negatively influenced when you go there? Do you have a special umbrella that you switch out, or you talk to God in particular? And so I have many other stories that I can tell you, Haiti's and support of Haiti. But I just want to ask you, what makes a difference? Boots on the ground. Who tells you it's safe? Because that's what our biggest complaint. We couldn't get off the boat.
Well, and you've really answered your own question, but I'll reiterate that it's called boots on the ground. We work with missionaries who are on the ground. and they live there and have lived there. In fact, I spoke with John Hansen with International Mission Outreach as I was driving to this meeting today. John has been there over 40 plus years. And so the knowledge of people on the ground, that's why our organization is different from other organizations. I saw during the earthquakes especially, people would fly in, they would unload their supplies, and they would hand them off to people they did not know. Well, that's very dangerous because you know what black market does? They take those supplies and then they sell them. So what we do is we are handing off our supplies to the co-ops of missionaries that are our missionary affiliates. They have filled out applications, they have been vetted, and so they have been checked out. And so we know who we're working with. The second thing is that I have made it a priority to make sure that I have a relationship with every government that we deal with. So when Brent called me last year, I think I was en route to visit with the president of the Dominican Republic. Is that correct? And so I was in his office. I was meeting him and his assistant, Dios Estacio is his name. Dios and I have become very good friends. I did this in Cuba. A lot of people know this, but I won't bore you with the story, but in '92 when I first started going to Cuba, I would go in and work in the churches, and I knew all those pastors, but we were helping bring in, like, for instance, we brought in incubators. We brought in incubators for the Hospital Pediatrico. I wanted to make sure those incubators got there because those incubators were about $2 million a piece. And so I went there, met with the doctors. They thought I was somebody really special. And I said, no. But they said, well, we want you to speak to our doctors. So I spoke to over 200 physicians. Later that night when I got back to my hotel, little gentleman knocked on my door and he said, you have been invited to a black tie dinner at the Palace of the Revolution. Well, my pastors there in Cuba said, don't go. And I said, well, will one of you go with me? No, we won't. Because you're gonna meet Fidel Castro. And so I called the State Department the next morning. I had a specific license to be in Cuba. I called my contact there, Karen, and Karen said, don't go because it will be a photo op. You don't want to do that. But I know you well enough that you're probably going to go because you think you're going to get an opportunity to share the gospel. So my Spanish is un poquito. It's terrible. I need a translator. And so I wrote this note and it said, I will attend the black tie dinner if I can get 15 minutes alone with Fidel Castro. Everybody that I told that to said, you're crazy. He's not going to meet with you. Do you know they said, come. He's agreed. And I got not only 15 minutes, I got an hour and a half, presented a Bible, shared the gospel, went back 7 different times to pray for him and to pray for his family while he was sick. I shared the gospel with numerous of his family members. I don't know how many of his children, because a lot of us don't know how many children he had. But this one thing I do know, that certainly God has given us favor. But I also know that God has provided in Agape Flights boots on the ground, as you put it, not Haitian officials. Now, through this burning down of this aircraft, I'm happy to report to you that I've had the privilege now of meeting with every Director General in Haiti and the interim Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. I will be back in Mr. Henry's office in a few weeks and had the privilege now of being more or less an advisor, because there are no elected officials right now in Haiti. Haiti is a mess politically. The gangs have taken over Haiti. For the first time in as long as I've been the CEO, when I get off the aircraft commercially in Port-au-Prince, I am met with an armed guard who stays with me, because it's not that I need to have a bodyguard, it's that I don't get abducted and then they try to get ransom. That's why. But we refused to stop flying. Now, we fly smart. We fly into secure areas. We were, though, in a secure area parked in a secure area behind a fence, International Airport, when that was abducted. But we do not, no longer will we leave an aircraft in Haiti overnight. We just won't do it. We will in the DR because we hire security, and we could hire even more security if we wanted to do it in Haiti. But I have made the decision we won't leave an aircraft overnight in Haiti, even in Port-au-Prince. I hope that answers your question, but we deal with boots on the ground, and our intelligence, certainly we talk with the State Department. I have many contacts there. But even the Haitian government, through this abduction and burning down of this aircraft, one of the directors general's Department of Finance director, young man, came to know Christ as a result of this. There have been several of those individuals and workers that have heard the message of Jesus Christ now. And so as a result of a lot of disruption, God created paths for communication as well as partnership and collaboration and relationship. And so I will tell you that we have a favor in these countries that is we're very thankful for. Otherwise, we would run into some of those things. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you ever been invited into the home of some of these people and served a meal? Yes, often.
In fact, I always tell the story of one of the times when I was going to pray for the president of Cuba. They put me in an old Russian limousine and put a hood over my head, and it was August. It was hot. We drove around Havana for 45 minutes. I was taking up 3 flights of steps with that hood still on, and we got in there. And yes, I've eaten, but I wanted to be clear because I think your question really adds to our conversation here that the everyday Cubans, Haitians, Dominicans, whoever it is, they are so gracious and they want you in their home. My wife, as I stated, is there now. She's an author and a teacher. She's written Mujeres de Gracia, Mujeres de Esperanza, Women of Hope, Women of Grace. I told you my Spanish was really bad, and it is. But she is with oftentimes the forgotten people of Cuba, and that's the ladies. And I'm often with people in Haiti that you'll sit down in someone's home and they're a mechanical engineer, but they live in a very, very, very small little hut. But they're so thankful that you've come to their house. And that's one of the things that I love. As you can tell, I'm very relational, and I want to be with people. Someone recently told me, they said, you don't talk a lot about the aircraft. Can I tell you something? I don't know a lot about the aircraft. I like them, I love them, but it's not how I'm built. I'm more comfortable with you all, having just met you, because I like people, and I enjoy being around people. But having a meal with them, it's very simple. Sometimes it doesn't include meat because it's not there. Yes.
Just a follow-up call. Our political structure, our wonderful people under the different presidents, are they more of a help or hindrance of your position, and if you need something to...
Our United States?
Well, yeah, under the different, the Obama administration had a different
yes.
way of doing it. So we're living in America and try to find out what they actually do in the State Department rather than what they publish.
Yes.
Your personal experience.
Well, my personal experience in dealing with Cuba, I'm going to stay away from getting political here. I'm not going to promote or say you need to vote for this person or that person. But I will tell you what President Obama did by at least putting his foot in the door with Cuba relations was extremely helpful for many of us who have been doing ministry in Cuba for a long, long time. We began to see, and I will say this, 60 plus years ago, the Helms-Burton Act is not helpful. Cuban people love the United States of America. Now, I will tell you what I see in Cuba right now is absolutely breaking my heart because there's no food. There's no rations anymore. There's nothing. Children are starving in Cuba, 90 miles off our coast. And we can't get anybody in the State Department to say, yes, you can start flying in again. We were the only missions aviation organization that had the permission of both governments. And that was a result of my long-standing relationship with Cuba. Overall, the State Department has been very, very helpful to me. But they can only do what those who are higher than them will allow them to do. We need some action right now. We need this administration to say, we're going to make some changes in policy, foreign policy, with our neighbors to the south, especially in dealing with Cuba and even Haiti. Haiti, again, is a different kind of mess than Cuba is. You're safe in Cuba. You can walk down the Malecon at 2 a.m. in the morning. Nobody's going to bother you. Don't try to do that in Haiti at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, there's a wide difference there. But yes, to answer your question, I have, over the years, had tremendous support and help. But with each administration, you get different sorts of those things that come out. Somebody has angst against this or that. But the Helms-Burton Act, the embargo, as we call it, to Cuba, has never worked. It will never work. And that's Allen's opinion. Just through about 31 years of experience in Cuba. What we need, and I'm not a pro-communist, I'm not any of those things, but I believe what we were seeing is God's love supersedes governments. And when people understand, one of the young Cubans that saw Agape Flights plane the first time in Cuba, I remember standing there with that young man. His name was Julio Gonzalez. And Julio wept his eyes out. I said, why are you crying? I said, it's a beautiful plane, I know. He said, it's red, white, and blue. But he said, it represents liberty. Whew. It just sent chills all over me. And I said, Julio, he said, for the first time, I'm going to be able to get a jar of peanut butter off of that plane. Peanut butter. So, if you pray about governments, pray that our government would listen occasionally to a little guy in Venice, Florida, about Haiti or Cuba or the Dominican, or that we would get an opportunity to say, hey, Mr. Secretary of State, what about doing this rather than doing this? Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for what you do. I want to ask more of an operational question, and that is that your work is to serve the missionaries, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
I'm curious, number one, why do not the mainstream churches that have sent these missionaries provide appropriate support for their people on the ground? And second, in this era when I can go online and become a minister, so to speak, of some faith out there, how do you process who is a legitimate missionary and who do you support, and how big a challenge is that for you?
Well, let's answer the first question, and he's right, because I have some of the same feelings, but there are a lot of independent missionaries, and there are a lot of denominations that do not support their missionaries with proper funding. In other words, these missionaries go out, they get the approval of either a denomination or a group a church group, but then they go on what's called deputation, and they go raise their support. So they'll be on the field for 9 months out of the year, and then they'll come back to the United States or wherever and raise funds so they can go back. Now, some of our missionaries are well supported when it comes to their pay and their salary and the things they need there. They will send their equipment. We are really a service, though, for all. We're multi-denominational. And how we vet is that they not only have to fill out an application, but they have to provide us with 3 references and sometimes up to 5 different references, where we get a reference from their sending agency, from their sending church or pastor, and then we do a complete background check. This is really sad to have to say this, but it's true. If you don't do this, you will be in trouble. We have to do a complete FBI background check for both them and, if they're married, their spouse. And then we have to do a financial check on those missionaries, because if they can't pay their bill, and this is unfortunate, but every once in a while I have to write off missionary debt because you can only send them so many emails and so many pink slips. But then we have a system in place where if they don't pay their bill, you know what? You don't get your stuff. And that sounds harsh, but it's reality if you don't do that. So we've had this, unfortunately, in that process, but it is fortunate, really, that we have steps in place to protect our ministry so that we don't have bad representation out there. And I've had to dismiss a few missionaries for a variety of reasons. So, yes.
My questions are need-based, and there's really 2 areas. Partnerships. The reason why I mention that is our church helped Kids Against Hunger, and we prepared 46,000 meals that went places, including Ukraine, and didn't know if you partner with like Kids Against Hunger because they've had trouble with taking food places. And then the other needs-based questions are, it sounds like that you provide ongoing support for your missionaries, and then you have the disaster relief. I'm making an assumption that you have a warehouse and that you stockpile things so that you have it when you need it. And so for those of us, whether it's funding or if we could do a drive of some sort for the blankets or something, what is it that we can do that can be supportive?
Yeah. So you are right, but our warehouse space has pretty much been limited. That's why we're building a new hangar, so we will use the current hangar for warehousing and needs cargo, scheduled cargo on a daily basis, and then the aircraft hangar. And again, I'm a pastor. I'm not an aviator and a technician, but they tell me through all of these safety audits that we have done, you needed mechanics to be focused intentionally on taking care of that aircraft, not because we have 110 volunteers on a weekly basis. So you can just imagine what our hangar looks like when we got people in and out of there and the mechanics are working on the aircraft, needing to stay focused. Hey, Greg. Hey, Chase. I need you over here. We've got a big, and so we're trying to get better at what we do and make sure that we do it well. We do partner with 8 Days of Hope with God's Pit Crew that provide, what a name. I love that name. God's Pit Crew. I was just out there a week ago. Pray for those guys, too. They're in Mississippi this morning. I talked to their CEO, and they're there on the ground. But we partner with them because they do a thing, and right now they've got a mobile unit that they would come into your church and prepare what we call the blessing buckets, which are really neat. We helped help them with these blessing buckets. They're not round buckets anymore. They're square because they stack much better than aircraft if they're square. But in that bucket, there are 37 different items. When you've lost everything, this is something you want. It's got a blanket in it. It's got a Bible in it. It's got hand sanitizer. It's got non-perishable food and water and washcloth and a towel. And I've walked through the barrios of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and I've seen those big red buckets, God's blessing buckets. And people have been sitting on them. I remember saying to a lady, it's okay if I take that bucket. She said, no, you can't have my bucket. And I said, but what do you use it for now? It was filled with, she said, it's my chair, it's my water hauler, and it's my suitcase. And I thought, it's a plastic bucket. But for her, it was everything. I would really encourage you, if you're interested in those kind of partnerships, God's Pit Crew and Agape Flights work together very well. And what they would do is they would come in and have you get your hands in on those bucket preparations. And then those buckets would stay in Southwest Florida at Agape Flights, or if you wanted to keep them here or whatever, we would keep them for the next earthquake or for the next hurricane. And that's what we've gotten better at, is preparing for the inevitable. And so we work with Mission of Hope. You mentioned hunger. Kids Against Hunger. Yeah. There are certain items that, in fact, we would love to partner with you all with on, like tarps. You can never have enough tarps. And right now, I think I've probably got 15 pallets of tarps. By the way, we work with a company out of Michigan that gets us solar lanterns, which are amazing. You can recharge your phone. And again, here we are in third world countries, but they do have phones. You can recharge a lot of things with that little solar light. You just put it out. But at night, it's a wonderful thing to have. So water filtration equipment, shelter like tarps and tents, but especially tarps. When you've lost the roof, you need a tarp. When you've got a leak in your roof, you need a tarp. Those are some things that we really need. All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question, then we'll wrap up because I know we're getting on our time here. You serve in a few different places already. Are there any plans to expand to, say, Venezuela or someplace else, in the area that is also having more need?
Well, Honduras, most definitely. We look that western route is going to be Honduras, probably Belize, because we've received many calls. Venezuela right now is shut. You can't even get in there. So I would think Honduras, Belize, possibly Colombia or Nicaragua. But Nicaragua is gone a whole different route too. Really pray that God will reopen the door to Cuba. That's such an easy flight, an hour and 10 minutes from Venice. The Cubans really need us, and they need our support. But really pray that would open up. But pray for me today. Like I said, I'll be in Miami tonight and speaking, and then in the morning I will leave. I'll be in Honduras by 9 o'clock in the morning. So I look forward to meeting those people there. And I've never been to Honduras, so I'm looking forward to flying in Tegucigalpa. They say, call it Tegus, but it's Tegucigalpa. I'm looking forward to flying in there. Again, pray that my Spanish would get better. Anybody else? Hey, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. It's been really a joy to meet you. Like I said, I love your pastor. I feel like I kind of knew this church. I would look forward maybe sometime to joining you in worship and hearing that wonderful Scottish brogue and I just really have enjoyed being here. Let me pray for you real quick if I could, and then Brent's going to come. Father, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today and to meet new friends. I thank you for this body of believers, this church that has generously given to Agape Flights. And Lord, I pray that partnership, that continuation will just grow and will be that which would honor you. We pray for people right now in Cuba and Haiti and Dominican Republic and the Bahamas and Honduras and Belize. Father, all over the Caribbean. We pray, Father, for your leadership and discernment, for your will to be clearly seen in the life and the ministry of Agape Flights. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity, and it's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. By the way, there is some material back there. Please take it because I don't have room for it on the aircraft. But thank you again for allowing me to be here.